Hey. What's going on, Miss Fitzy Lou Who? How goes it? It's my shirt. Not today. I'm glad my chest ain't near as big as it looks on here. Because on here, it looks like they are out to here. And here, they almost look flat. Oh, I don't want no more rain. I think it's supposed to be kind of rainy all weekend. Yeah, I ordered this shirt and then I got it and didn't. It's a good thing I got the size I did because it's a fitted t shirt. And it's not like t shirt material cotton, it's like a polyester type shirt. A little disappointed in it. All right, I'm getting ready to get started because I'm already late getting on here and I don't know who I'm supposed to show up anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and then you can greet everybody as they come on. So we'll see what this is. See voices I can come up with tonight after I yelled. Oh, this rain. Okay, it is cute. I do like it, but prologue, London, England, 1567. This would be her first test as a guardian angel, the very first time that she, and she alone, was responsible for the success of the job. No partner to bail her out if she messed up. No pressure. Then, no pressure. Then why does she feel the need to vomit from the pinching pain in her stomach? Her mentor, Jasper Moreau, had flashed a brilliant smile and pushed her hair back up under her boy's cap before shoving her out of the carriage a couple of blocks down from the tavern. He said, "You've got this, darling. You're a natural." Just thought I'd throw that out there. I hope we don't talk a lot here because I can't do the whole thing. Greylyn was glad someone had confidence in her because she certainly did not. She had spent the last few months learning how to fight, how to utilize her guardian senses, how to cover her tracks, and how to blend into society from Jasper. He had been an unrelenting taskmaster, but kind after training was completed each day. The grueling physical training had been nothing compared to his endless lectures on everything from metaphysical sciences and world religions to telepathy and mastering the art of disguise. The latter came in handy for tonight's assignment. Inside her heart hammered against her rib cage. Cold sweat broke out on her palms, peering through the soupy fog across the broken cobblestone street. Greylyn paused to stare at the entrance to the tavern. Women were not commonplace in bars unless as barmaids or they practiced a certain profession. The tight corsets and stiff skirts did not work well in circumstances where she needed to fight. She prayed the ruffled shirt, vest, baggy breeches, as well as the tight bandages that kept her bosom well hidden and made breathing near impossible were enough to disguise her femininity. A tingling feeling spread all over her body from the moment she pushed open the heavy doors of the tiny dim pub. The heat from too many bodies crammed together so closely and the stench of the smoke figured I'd do this last night. I was yawning so much before I got on last night. I don't know why I'm doing it tonight. The heat from too many bodies crammed together so closely and the stench of the smoke emitting from the corner fireplace smacked her in the face immediately. Sweat broke out across her forehead. She itched to wipe her brow, but her hands were shaking too violently. Swallowing the vial rising from her belly, she forced her feet to shuffle forward until the heavy door thudded back against the doorframe. 5 steps. Sorry. Let me drink some more tea. Is the music too loud? 5 steps into the establishment, and every nerve ending ignited like the fireworks Jasper had told her about from his last visit to China. This feeling was quite different from what she experienced when coming into contact with the innocent human she was charged with saving. The first time her guardian senses had picked up on Edward, the hairs on the back of her neck rose, her vision momentarily blurred, and there had been a faint tickling in her chest. But this feeling she could not replace. Dang it. Something was wrong. She shoved her way through the throng of patrons to the bar. A sensation of being drawn to something, like a magnet in her belly, fought against her body's command to move forward. It demanded she stop and turn. Jasper had never warned her about something like this. Was it nerves? Greylyn dug her fingernails into her palms. Stay focused. The invisible pull messed with her connection to the innocent man she was there to help. The ruddy-faced gambler was on the other side of the tavern. His eyes flitted around the room. His time was short, and he knew it. The man, Edward, had failed to pay his debt to the notorious card shark. He did not owe money. He owed his soul. No matter where he ran, the demonic enforcers would track him down. She had been sent here tonight specifically to save the man from having a harpy gorge on his soul like a meal of fish and chips. He was her mission, but still her feet refused to cooperate. What is wrong with me? As her eyes darted around the room looking for the source of her discomfort, her vision blurred and her pulse quickened. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until a dazzling pair of eyes, flecks of gold, practically glowing in a sea of burnt umber, stared at her from a corner table. The gentleman's eyes widened momentarily, and a slight tremor rippled through his expression. Dark hair with auburn highlights cascaded down past his shoulders. Rooted into place, time stopped, and the world around her went hazy until his face transformed into a mischievous grin that sent tantalizing tingles throughout her body. Heat crept up her cheeks, but for what reason she could not comprehend. A loud crash from across the tavern broke Greylyn from her paralysis. She spun around to see Edward bolting out the back door, followed by a group of burly-looking men carrying a large potato sack and thick wooden clubs. Damn it! This was exactly what she was meant to stop. Before she could give chase, a tall, muscular form blocked her path. Citrus and sandalwood invaded her senses, which was strange given the odor of sweat, stale whiskey, and ale that permeated the crowded tavern. Excuse, she looked up. Big mistake. Hypnotic eyes stared down at her, and a delicious smile curled the corners of a sensual mouth. Her own lips failed to form words. May I help you, young lad? His voice washed over her, deep and somewhat familiar, followed by a throaty chuckle. Her mind screamed to get away from this man, fast, but her eyes were locked on his, unable to break free. An abrupt, "Hey, Casey. Sorry, I was running a little bit late today." You'll just sit back and enjoy it. It gets better. So, um, an abrupt, high pitched cackling of a barmaid burst through her deaf ears, shattering her invisible hold, forcing her feet to move. Greylyn spun around and sprinted out the back entrance of the tavern, desperate to find Edward before the demons captured him, or worse. Behind the bar, the back street was dark and stank of garbage piled in more than a dozen mountains against the weathered stone exterior. Her eyes adjusted almost instantly, but Edward was nowhere in sight. He must have gotten away or done a damn good job of hiding, because the demon thugs canvassing the alley cursed and hurled threats to no one in particular. One especially rotund demon possessed man swung a large wooden slab at piles of refuse lined up against the building, where the others slowly stalked along the alleyway. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Well, that's not exactly how you wrote, but it's close enough. One taunted. You can't hide forever, stupid bloke. Okay, now what, Greylyn? Lost the innocent. Now she was stuck in a face-off with a band of demonic ruffians. Jasper's voice rang in her head. Brilliant job. She doubted Jasper would praise her efforts so far to save the human. Instead, she was in quite a conundrum. No, her first lone assignment was not going smoothly. Not at all. Greylyn took a deep breath before moving out of the shadows to stand in the middle of the alley. Yanking the cap off her head that had kept her long ebony locks hidden away, she whistled to get their attention. Yo, laddies, looking for a good time? Yeah, no, we're not. We already know that my British voice is awful. They turned in unison, each bearing the same slimy grin. The one in the middle, carrying a meat cleaver of all things, stalked towards her. What have we got here? A wee pretty thing, tain't she? He cranked his head left and then right, bones popping loudly. Why you covering up all your assets, dressing like a lad? With that, he lunged for her arm. Greylyn sidestepped, pivoted, and slammed him in the back of the head with her elbow. What the hell? Where were the last words he uttered as she slid in front of him with her dagger drawn, leaving a bright trail of blood along his now near decapitated neck. The others paused as the man fell to the ground, his head lolling. It's a hard word to say. Crimson blood gushed onto the cobblestones to mix with the putrid liquid runoff from the piles of garbage. Greylyn stood tall, well, as tall as she could for her barely 5-foot frame. Who's next, boys? Look who's the tough broad now. Me. That's who. Spending all day, every day with Jasper, and his sarcastic wit had rubbed off on her. With her confidence reinstated from such a quick first kill, Greylyn's ego swelled with pride. However, this probably was not the best time to spout off to a demon gang, even if she was tough. Tall, splotchy, and already sporting a black eye from another encounter, the man on the left advised. Such a lovely lassie. Spit flew out between his blackened teeth and blackened and rotting teeth. 'Twould be a shame to spoil such a lovely lassie as yourself, but he shrugged. That'd be fun too. He barreled towards her with a quid run off from the piles of garbage. Greylyn stood tall. Well, wait a minute. With a wicked smile. Whoosh! The air escaped her lungs when he slammed into her, tackling her to the ground. No sooner had she blinked away the stars in her eyes. His tremendous weight lifted off her. Greylyn flinched and screwed her eyes shut, waiting for him to punch or kick her, or outright twist her head off her body. Nothing happened. What the bloody? The goon did not get to finish his sentence. The next thing she heard was him gasping for breath, then the tremendous thud when he collapsed onto the ground. Blood flowed from his mouth, and his neck bent at an awkward angle. Oh, thank heavens, Jasper had arrived to save her sorry butt. When she looked over, the man smashing the other goon's face in the rock wall until his skull split open was quite obviously not Jasper Moreau. It was the man from the predatory tiger eyes she had encountered inside the tavern. The one that caused her to mess up because the pull to him had been greater than her guardian angel connection to poor hapless Edward. Where the hell was Edward anyway? Lying paralyzed on the ground, Greylyn watched in abject fascination as the handsome man savagely twisted the neck off the last member of the Card Sharks hit squad. From this vantage point, she could not make out his expression. His movements were smooth and agile, but also brutal, an exquisite and macabre dance of primal violence. No more bad guys to fend off. He whipped out a handkerchief from his breast pocket with a flick of his wrist and wiped away the blood and gore splattered on his face and hands. He did it in such a nonchalant manner as if it were a commonplace to violently beat men to death. A chill ran up Greylyn's spine as he turned to face her. Do I thank him or run? In 2 quick strides, he knelt beside her. One hand came up to brush a tendril of hair out of her eyes and tuck it behind her ear. The angered expression he had worn just seconds before had evaporated. His eyes softened. A small smile tugged at his lips. A wave of heat originated from his touch, spreading out to her entire body. Everything's all right now, Gray. His voice, smooth yet husky, trailed off with a slight accent marking him as not English, but from someplace close, someplace familiar. A chill raced through her veins, freezing her in place as she watched his glowing topaz eyes widen before morphing to a crimson hue. A demon? No, not exactly. The hint of sulfur was missing. The way pinpricks of pain flashed out when one touched her skin did not happen. Oh, there were pinpricks of something, but not the same sensation. No, he was not a demon, nor was he possessed by one. Of that she was certain. But the realization something was different about this man was enough to jar her back to her senses. Her fingers coiled tightly around the hilt of her dagger, a weapon bestowed upon her as part of her initiation into the world of guardian angels. The handle, intricately carved with a Celtic symbol interlaced with the sign of infinity and 2 opals of varying shades embedded in the center, now pressed into the soft skin of her palm. Months of intensive practice, it was now an extension of herself. Its sharp, jagged edges of an unbreakable, shimmering blue metal were forged specifically to kill demons, to kill anything not intended for this world. Greylyn prayed it also worked on whatever this man was. He had not moved, just stared at her with those freaky eyes of blood. She slashed upward with the blade. He jerked away, but not in time. A gash appeared across his cheek, and his hand flew up to his face. Greylyn used his momentary surprise to push herself off the ground to run away. Not 2 steps later, the man grabbed her upper arm, hauling her backwards into his chest with such momentum she felt, as well as heard, the crackling of her spine from the impact. The small bones of her wrist popped painfully under pressure from his much larger hand, forcing his fist to unclasp and the dagger to fall. His hand had snaked around her waist. Going somewhere so soon? His voice had a gruff edge to it, now no longer velvety smooth. Every instinct screamed at her not to, but she defiantly craned her neck to stare up at her captor. Big mistake. He whipped her around to face him, now pressed against his chest, the thumping of her own heart against her ribcage mixed with sound of his own rose to a deafening level, blocking out all other sounds. His lips curled on one side, highlighting the dimple. Perfectly white teeth glinted the dim moonlight. Warm breath caressed her face, smelling slightly of bourbon. Let me go, she ground out from clenched teeth. Her body shivered, but she refused to acknowledge the fear. Although it was likely she might not survive her first guardian assignment, Jasper's mantra that he had drilled into her head over the last year rang in her ears. Never acknowledge the fear. A guardian does not have the luxury of giving in to fear. Greylyn prayed, her eyes reflected resolve and courage, not the terror coursing through her veins, or whatever else was pulsing through her body. A full grin broke out on the man's face. The red flames dancing in his eyes smoldered before returning to their topaz hue that had riveted her in place earlier. His entire face relaxed. Now, love, why would I do that? There's so much here we have to discuss before. Greylyn stomped down on his foot with all of her strength. Considering their significant size difference, she did not expect it to work, but it startled her captor enough for him to loosen his grip. She wrenched her arm away while her other fist swung up and slammed into his face. Blood gushed from his nose, flowing down to drip off his chiseled chin. Instead of an angry shout or return punch, he glared steadily at her with no other outward show of pain or emotion. So much for civility, then. The words were spoken so softly through thin lips that she almost doubted he had spoken at all until his fist shot out. Excruciating pain blinded her. The dirt broke my nose. Strong hands gripped her arms and yanked her with such force her neck snapped as her body sailed across the alleyway, colliding with the moss-covered stone wall of the tavern. All the air whooshed out of her lungs. Okay, it looks like we got a couple more people on here that are not commenting. If you're not able to comment, let me show you how to do this. If you can't find the comment button on your phone, no thanks. When you see just tap on that. And when you see me, tap again. When you see me, tap again. And the chat button will be underneath. So if you can just tap on my head and it'll get you to the chat. Passing. The jerk broke my nose. Strong hands gripped her arms and yanked her with such force her neck snapped as her body sailed across the alleyway. Colliding with the moss-covered stone wall of the tavern, all the air whooshed out of her lungs. A coppery tinge filled her mouth. Hey, Ori. I hope you had a good walk. Pain and anger boiled up, fueling a surge of adrenaline that brought everything into crystal clear focus. All sound except for her assailant's heavy breathing stopped. She waited. Why didn't he attack? Why did he stop? She raised her head in defiance, blood and muck clinging to the strands of hair covering her face. I am a guardian angel. No evil shall pass by me. The man was obviously evil. Demon or not, evil was evil. She had no choice but to put an end to him. Like hitting little girls, do you? Not very gentlemanly. She clicked her tongue against behind her teeth as her arms numbly pushed her into a squatting position. Sizing him up, this sizing him up this time as an opponent, Greylyn saw past the fashionable attire and good looks to the dark soul underneath. A blackness exuded from his aura, so dark it mingled with the night sky. How had she not seen it before? The man straightened to his full height, hands at his side, curled into fist. You shouldn't be here, love. She had expected an angry retort or another attack, but his voice was soft and shaky. Her eyes darted around the alley. She needed a weapon, preferably her own. Where had it gone? With the moon fully ensconced behind the clouds, it was impossible to see more than his faint outline, even with her superior nighttime vision. Greylyn rose to stand, her back against the broken stone wall. Well, I am here, ready to party. She had aimed for a daring but jovial tone. The slight squeak at the end belied her inner fear. Looking for a good time, I see. Well then, how about a dance? He sprung at her in a blur, but Greylyn dodged just an inch to the left, and he slammed into the same wall he had thrown her against. She pivoted to attack while he was still prone on the ground, but a sudden glint of blue caught her attention. Her dagger, just a few yards away. She dove to the right, her outstretched fingers grazed the hilt, but her hesitation cost her. A hand clamped down fully on the handle and wrestled it away from her grasp. He rolled her over roughly, straddled her hips with her arms trapped underneath his knees, and smashed her face with the fist holding her own weapon. Pain exploded as bones and tendons cracked and blood seemed to spurt from every pore. The assault continued, punch after punch, blow after blow. Greylyn's world turned crimson just before a blackness edged her vision. Her first assignment as a guardian angel, her first failure, and quite possibly her last. Death was inevitable. Not even her own supernatural strength could save her from this monster. Despite the agony racing throughout her body, her mind clearly accepted her fate. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. Silence fell over the alley. The rain of punches stopped. Greylyn's eyes opened to peek at her attacker. What she saw chilled her to her soul. The demonic red eyes had smoldered away, back to their original gold-flecked hue. The man's face transformed from pure rage to a sadness as a tear rolled down his cheek. A tear? I'm I oh no. He his trembling lips continued to move, but no coherent words formed. What the bloody hell? An angry voice shocked her out of her stupor. The voice she recognized Jasper. Unable to move, she gaped as a tall shadow with piercing eyes of ice jerked her assailant away from her. You damn. He did not finish his sentence, just punched the man in the face while holding him by his lapel. Greylyn gulped in air. She was not dead. Not yet. Renewed energy pulsated through her body and gave her strength to push herself up on shaky arms. She stared, turning to look at each man as they circled each other. Both men with deadly intent etched on their faces. In between getting hit and throwing jabs of his own, the stranger murdered. Had to be you. It just had to be you. One final uppercut to Jasper's jaw, and the guardian angel fell back. Her mouth opened to scream for him to leave Jasper alone, but no words came out. He turned to her, his face bloodied, but with a sad smile. Until next time, love. Seconds later, he vanished down the alleyway. Suddenly able to move again, Greylyn jumped up and ran over to Jasper. Who the hell was that? I'm fine, by the way. With the indignant look he flashed, she knew Jasper was far from being fine. Physically, yes, he was all right, but his icy blue eyes spoke volumes of fury she could not understand. I'm so sorry. She checked him for injuries. Hands roved over his body. His clothes were splattered with blood. Other than his pride and a black eye that would fade in an hour or two, he was in perfect shape. Greylyn knew she looked like a mess. Hell, she should be dead. Instead, the blood had already dried, and the sizzle of her bones mending underneath her skin comforted her. I am not going to die, at least not tonight. Jasper cupped her chin. Yes, I know. It's my fault. It was too soon to send you out on your own like that. I realized my mistake and came to find you in case you needed assistance. A nerve twist in his jaw, and I find I was correct. You certainly needed help. Disappointment was evident in his tone. Oh no! Edward, did he escape? I came out here looking for him, but these guys... She waved her hand toward the corpses littering the alley. Were after him and... Yes, I get you. You ran into the bad guys, and as a bonus, you got a bloody dark guardian your first time on your own. A what? A dark guardian. The exact opposite of us, darling. You are just lucky I came along when I did. That one would have carved you up like a porterhouse steak. He pushed himself off the ground. At his full height of well over 6 feet tall, he towered above her. I'm just going to rewrite your story for you as I read along. I mean, my mind does this sometimes. It just puts words in there that it wants. Ugh. Does this dark guardian have a name? She did not know why it mattered that she find out his name. Jasper narrowed his eyes at her in obvious disapproval. That one in particular is it Kale? Kael? Kale? Jasper spat. Truly nasty piece of work. Avoid him at all costs. Hopefully you will never have to see that creature again. He turned towards her and grabbed her by the upper arms, leaning forward so they were nose to nose. An aroma of whiskey and tobacco wafted into her face. Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure. Greylyn, promise me that you will stay away from Kel if he ever crosses your path. Either annihilate him completely with your dagger through his heart, and then rip it out of his body while it is still beating, or run. Just run. Centuries later, Jasper's warning still echoed in her ears. Kel arose ever so often, almost as if he were taunting her with his presence. He would toy with her, undo whatever good she intended to do, and just in general, made her afterlife difficult. Every encounter etched into her memory, chipping away at her tough veneer. One day, she vowed she would end him for good. Chapter 1, The Dueling Hearts, West Memphis, Arkansas. 4 centuries later. This is up close to Mr. Nathan's hometown, boys and girls, or Ori and Vincy. Still beer. Oh, by the way, Casey, if you didn't know, Ori is Nina, my PA, so, and then Vincy's my other PA, so that should let you know who everybody is. The Dueling Hearts, West Memphis, Arkansas, 4 centuries later. Stale beer and a sweat assailed Greylyn as the gorilla of a bouncer pushed open the wooden doors to allow her entrance into the Dueling Hearts. The country western establishment was the hottest nightclub scene this side of the Arkansas-Tennessee state line. She sometimes wondered why she never had an assignment at a spa or a beach resort. Instead, it seemed she always ended up in bars and alleys seeking out people to save. One of our good friends, another one of Nina's authors that she takes care of, he's from Mississippi, but up in that corner of Mississippi, close to Memphis. I think he's only like an hour away from Memphis or something. After jostling with other bar patrons for the lone bartender's attention, Greylyn ordered a bourbon with a splash of Coke and settled in to wait. Trying her best to put the "don't bother me" vibe with a vacant stare and expressionless face, she sipped her watered-down beverage. A tugging sensation in the back of her mind alerted Greylyn that her young charge, Jenna, had just walked through the door with some friends. She shook her head. Last weekend, Greylyn had pushed up against a plain Jane with mousy brown hair, barely had brushed up against a plain Jane with mousy brown hair, barely able to make eye contact with anyone. All of Jenna's loneliness and memories of neglect had flooded her angel senses. However, she had not been sent to rescue the girl from her own fragile mentality. Now the girl sported long platinum blonde locks that went midway down her back. Her face was plastered with Southern Beauty Queen makeup. The transformation was complete with typical clubbing attire. Short denim skirt, shimmering hot pink tank top exposing substantial cleavage, and silver stiletto heels that she had obviously trouble walking in. Poor girl's going to break her ankle in those things. Unfortunately, the metamorphosis had done nothing to improve Jenna's emotional state. She still could not make eye contact with anyone. As Jenna headed towards the bar with her friends, Greylyn kept an eagle eye on the door for trouble. She did not have to wait long. Trouble, aka Devin, a young, handsome man with a Cheshire cat smile and smoky gray eyes, sauntered into the bar and made a beeline towards the girl. He was followed closely by an entourage of 4 strapping young cowboy types. An annoying buzzing behind her eyes confirmed it. Soul-stealing demons. Greylyn had encountered several soul stealers over the years. Seeing the results of their work, the zombies that their victims became as they continued throughout life without the ability to feel love, hope, happiness, or differentiate between right and wrong, made her blood boil. Adding to her frustration was the fact that this particular soul stealer had escaped her clutches before and gone on to inflict evil on countless other souls. Tapping her toes to the upbeat country tunes, she vigilantly watched over Jenna, waiting for a good moment to confront Devin alone. But the group of demon cowboys stayed close together, forming a circle around the couple. The tiny hairs on the back of her neck suddenly stood straight up. One of Devin's pals approached her, a squat-faced man resembling an NFL linebacker with long, shaggy, dishwater blonde locks tied back in a ponytail. His ragged designer jeans and uber-tight white t-shirt showcased his ripped abs and pectorals to perfection. Several female heads spun around, watching his every move, before probably hoping he was heading their way, but he stopped right in front of her with an outstretched hand. Care to two-step? Without waiting for an answer, he grabbed her hand and dragged her onto the dance floor. He took every opportunity to press his face close to hers. The stench of the brute's beer breath could have leveled the entire establishment and made her eyes water. She continued to smile up at him while fighting the urge to flinch. Despite his numerous attempts to hold eye contact with her, a common trick used to captivate innocence, her eyes darted around the room in search of Jenna and Devon. With all the twirling, Greylyn lost sight of them in the throngs of couples on the dance floor. Again, she cursed her shortness. The thug blocked everything in her line of sight. After about the 10th time of swatting his giant hand off her buttocks, she had had enough. The twangy song mercifully ended, so she wrenched herself away from his meaty grasp. Her heartbeat quickened. Neither Jenna nor Devon was anywhere in sight. Shivers spread up her spine. Her charge was in danger. Damn it, where the hell is she? Greylyn climbed up on the edge of the stage for a better view. She spotted one of Jenna's friends, a strawberry blonde in black denim pants and a V-neck top that plunged far down when she bent over. The woman was sitting on the lap of a young cowboy with his hand sliding up and down her legs. She pushed past the throngs of dancers without waiting to introduce herself. She yanked the woman off her paramour. Where did Jenna go? Starry, vacant, hazel eyes stared back at her. The girl was blitzed. With the gray tinge around her aura, Greylyn suspected she was quite literally drowning her sorrows. Placing the pads of her thumbs on the woman's eyelids, she whispered a quick spell in Latin. Ostindo mihi Jenna. The last image of her friend played back in Grayson's mind. In Greylyn's mind. Why do I keep wanting to call him Grayson? It's Greylyn's mind. Jenna holding hands with Devon as he led her down a long, dim corridor towards the back bar area. The poor girl had even tripped in those insane high heels, but Devon caught her arm, dragging her outside. I fake it till I make it. I can't even hardly, as you can tell, I can't even hardly talk American English, Southern American English any good, much less another language. Thanks. She released the girl, but something stopped her from running out the back. A vision blinded her to all else. The thumping of the music stilled. All else around her ceased to exist. The same woman, except dressed in ivory chiffon, stared out a high window. Although slightly obscured by a drizzling mist, terror radiated from the woman's white eyes. A single tear slid down her pale, freckled cheek. Fear seized Greylyn's own heart and squeezed near bursting. Then the rowdy bar roared back into full focus amid the crowd singing along to Chicken Fried. I should have played some country instead of some classic rock tonight. By the Zac Brown Band. Shaking off the vision, Greylyn placed a reassuring hand on the woman's shoulder. I believe I'll be seeing you again sooner or later. Glossy eyes stared blankly back. Greylyn ran out the back of the Dueling Hearts to an unlit alleyway. Her vision immediately adjusted to the pitch black night. In the right corner of the alley, Devon's entourage loitered around a stretched limo, smoking cigarettes. She sensed Jenna nearby, but could not see her or the soul stealer anywhere. Okay, Gray, it is now or never to put those acting skills to work. After working as an understudy for a minor character from an off Broadway production of Cats for 3 months to keep the producer from taking advantage of the revolving door of innocent children into the theater, she took a bit of pride in her new dramatic skill set. Mussing her hair a bit, she noisily sauntered towards the group. Excuse me, she said in her best drunken drawl. Could one of you handsome gents help me out? The men turned towards her, their eyes at first growing wide before narrowing at her approach. The way their gazes roved up and down her body, lingering too long on her chest, sent a wave of revulsion through her. They advanced toward her like a hyena pack. Greylyn picked the weakest looking of the crew, a tall, lanky blonde with pristine nails and hair frozen in place with product. Waving over to him, Waving over to him, she peered up into his slate gray eyes as she placed her hands lightly on his chest. Hi, she cooed seductively, followed by a giggle. With a wicked half grin, the demon placed his hand over hers while using his other hand on her chin to lift her eyes to his face. He drawled, Hello there. Just how can we help you, pretty lady? He kept one hand on her face while the other lightly brushed her hand, which remained on his chest, just above where his shirt opened to reveal baby smooth skin. She batted her richly mascaraed lashes at him and giggled again. You know, I think I'm lost. One minute I was inside the bar looking for the ladies' room, and then I was outside. Now I can't figure out how to get back in. He uttered a tisking sound as the others closed the circle even more tightly around her. With a sickening, sweet, condescending tone, the demon stroked her cheek as he leaned in to whisper into her ear. Poor little lost lamb. Just what are we going to do with you? At his last words, his irises changed to blood-red orbs. Greylyn firmly placed one hand against the demon's chest. Her other fist struck out with all her might. Skin and bone gave way underneath her small, thin hands. Not a death blow by any means, since he was a demon, but enough to incapacitate him while she dealt with the rest. In his shock, the demon's eyes quickly retreated to his regular human gray. Clutching his chest, he slumped to the ground as blood gurgled out of his mouth. The others jumped into action as the injured demon lay on the asphalt, writhing in agony. One down, three strapping demon cowboys to go. They attacked simultaneously. Her squat-faced thug dance partner grabbed her arms from behind. She kneeled over as the other two rained down punches on her face and into her abdomen. A sharp jab straight to her nose, accompanied by a nauseating crunching of bone. Greylyn was blinded by pain. Infuriated, she raised her face to glare at her attackers. You're gonna regret that. With one super hard stomp of her cowgirl boots on the toes of the demon behind her, she quickly retreated to his. She quickly heard a gush of air as he bent over in pain. She reared her head back as sharply as possible to collide with his face. He bellowed like a howler monkey before letting go. Staggering back, he cupped his hands over her face as blood gushed out of his broken nose. Who's next? She swiped the blood dribbling down her own face with the back of her hand. The other two advanced with more caution. Backing up to get a running start, she maintained eye contact with the bigger, more aggressive-looking demon. Greylyn reached behind her back to grasp the hilt of her dagger. Its power flowed from her hands and up her arm in a warm wave. She unsheathed it and pulled it in front of her, gripping the weapon firmly by the intricate Celtic crest carved in the handle. Its blade shone with a cold, pale light of its own, and was sharp enough to slice through a single strand of hair as it floated in the air, while its jagged edges could saw through anything. Not many things could kill a demon, but that was exactly what the dagger was designed to do, and it did its job well. That's a good thing Greylyn prefers classic rock, because that's what I got going. Greylyn sprinted towards the two standing demons. One turned and ran with a shriek reminiscent of a cartoon character's reaction to seeing a ghost. The other stared her down while waiting for her to strike. Just a step before reaching him, she jerked it to the right. He lunged for where he thought she would be, but with an abrupt pivot, she swung behind him. Her dagger thrust upward into his back, finding its mark, the place where a human heart would reside. The serrated edges sawed through the beating muscle, then ripped upward. The demon bellowed in pain before falling lifeless to the ground, red, slimy blood gushing out of his wound and pooling underneath his corpse. Panting for air to refresh her burning lungs, Greylyn peered around her while wiping the blade on her jeans. Her dance partner had recovered. Rage peered out from under the body-drenched hair, partially covering his eyes. He stormed towards her, much like an NFL linebacker going for the quarterback sack. Blood cascaded down his face, his lips curled up in a menacing snarl. "Hey there, sweetie," she teased as he stopped within a few feet of her. "Wanna dance?" His growl was all the answer she needed. I've been practicing my growl. I'm not there yet. They circled each other, never breaking eye contact. He moved first, swatting at her head with the long, muscular arms. She swept back, but the palm of his hand whacked the side of her cheek with a resounding slap. Greylyn raised a hand to her face. Her cheek stung fiercely, but she grinned back at him. She had not realized just how much she missed the rush of adrenaline and the thrill of the fight until this moment. Her last few jobs had been benign, involving talking desperate people out of doing horrible things or just not jumping. Nothing that required violence until now. He barreled toward her with a guttural snort like a raging bull in the arena. She quickly sidestepped and hooked her foot around his ankle. The thug face planted on the rocky asphalt next to the back tire of the limo. With the dagger suspended above her head, Greylyn pounced on his back, jerking his head back by grabbing a handful of hair. The knife sliced through the bulging muscles at his neck, through his jugular vein. A final death thrash threw her off him just as his body slumped against the pavement. Asphalt pebbles wedged painfully into her skin. Before she could take a breath, the back door of the limo creaked open. Devin emerged in all of his tall faux cowboy glory. Red lipstick smudged his stark white shirt and around his mouth. Obviously, he had been enjoying his quality time with Jenna. Please, Lord, don't let him have gotten his grubby mitts on her soul yet. His eyes burned with barely controlled rage. He did not glance back as a clearly frightened Jenna ran, sobbing hysterically towards the bar. With relief, Greylyn noted the girl's aura was still intact, meaning so was her soul. Her emotional state, on the other hand, not so much. Devin's eyes narrowed with contempt as he assessed the carnage lying around the alley. In 2 long, quick strides, he was within inches of her face. Greylyn stood her ground. "If you want me alone," Devin's lips curled into a suggestive grin, "all you had to do was ask." She wiped her bloody blade on her white tank top. The move was enough to attract Devin's attention. He blinked, causing his gray irises to flash their true demon red. "Nice knife. Looks familiar. A guardian's blade, I see. Should have guessed, considering your..." He waved his hand to indicate the bloodbath in the alley. "Work." Still, his eyes remained dead locked on the dagger. Deciding to capitalize on his fascination with the weapon, she waved it in front of his face, moonlight reflecting off its pearly surface. The jagged edges darkened with demon blood. Devin made a lightning-fast grab for the dagger, but came up empty-handed. "Gotta be quicker than that, cowboy." Devin took a step back to get a better look at her. He shook his head, his long dark locks swished over her eyes as a pearl of sweat streamed down his face. He made another unsuccessful grab for the knife. There's something familiar about you. Who I am is irrelevant. What I am is the means to an end. Yours. She lunged at him with whirlwind speed. As she attacked, she envisioned all the nasty, evil things he had done to countless humans. There were no telling how many lives he had shattered since her last failure to kill him. Tonight, those souls would be avenged. They charged each other with roars of fury. He was strong and fast, faster than his entourage had been. With a powerful kick, the tip of his boot smashed into her sternum, knocking the breath out of her lungs. Falling, Greylyn barely escaped another bash to the chest from his boot heel with a quick twist to the side. She jumped up and sprang over the demon's head to land on the trunk of the limo. Her feet slid on the smooth metal, but she planted them firmly against a slight ridge on the edge. Despite the pain ravaging every muscle, despite the broken bones, and despite the blood gushing down her face, making everything in her sight blurred in heavy crimson, she could not resist a grin at the riled up demon. He dove to tackle her. They both tumbled off the car onto the sharp graveled pavement. Locked together in a battle for control, they rolled for several feet. Devon grabbed her wrist just as the dagger's point pricked the skin at the base of his Adam's apple. Her wrist bones snapped and sent shocks up her arms. Unable to withstand the pressure, her hold on the weapon weakened. Devon successfully turned the blade around towards Greylyn's chest. The tip pierced her skin. She headbutted him with all of her might. Blinding pain exploded through her skull. His head shot back with a howl of rage. The reprieve was just enough to loosen his grip. Greylyn twisted the weapon around, now clutched in her hands, and scraped the edge across the jugular vein throbbing in his neck. Devon's hands clawed at his bleeding throat. She pushed him off her, blinded by pain and blood. Greylyn crawled in the direction of the gurgling sound of the soul-stealing demon in his death throes. Once she came in contact with his hard form writhing on the asphalt, she straddled his body while holding his arms down and her knees. He thrashed wildly, trying to toss her off him, but she held on tight, digging her heels into his sides, raising her arms high above her head. She thrust the dagger down with the strength she could muster in her tiny frame, right into his heart. Greylyn felt the jagged edges tear through the skin, muscle, and bone to the beating organ. Another push and twist of the blade. The heart of the demon burst with slimy blackish blood. Devon, the soul stealer, was dead. And I'm going to stop right there, girls. What y'all thinking? Is that pretty good? Y'all like that? Whew. Thank you, Miss Casey. I appreciate that. That's a good little book. That's a good little book. It's not that long either. Since it takes about 5 hours to read, so it's a little under 300 pages. Vincy, I know you love all these little extra voices I throw in here. Tried to throw in some extras because I figured that when you got groups of guys around, you're going to have a lot of guy voices, and I'm limited to about 4 good ones on that one. Casey, I really enjoyed it. It was a good book. Yeah, I could see this being a good beach read or a good rainy day curled up on the sofa read. Something like that. Yeah, I could definitely see that. All right, ladies. It's about that time. So I'm going to get off from here, and you all have a wonderful evening, a wonderful weekend. And Casey, don't be a stranger. Come back. You can come back and visit anytime. And next time you got a book coming out, just holler at Nina or Vinci and they'll get you on the schedule for it. So, but I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for letting me read it. I'm enjoyed that. So, alrighty. Y'all have a great evening and I'll talk at you later. Happy reading.